Today I get to talk about a game that was quite fun. I ran around a lot and shot a bunch of bugs with guns. Unfortunately, I do not have all that many puns. The idiot deploys! This is going to be a tricky review to write, mostly because I like to try and go in depth with a lot of the categories that I use to review a game. But Earth Defense Force 2025, like most games before it, only has one main storyline. Aliens, bugs, and robots are in your way, and you must shoot a lot of them. Yeah, I'm going to be scraping for this one to say the least. I myself am not too familiar with the series, as this is only my second EDF game. My first was Insect Armageddon, which was a lot grittier and felt more Americanized, which makes sense as it was made with the mindset of what if an EDF game was made by Americans. Apparently the answer to that question is that it would be mercifully short and resulting in a lot less rage from me. Anyway, EDF 2025 initially came out in 2013, a bit early in it, and I got it this year along with the other one and played through both, but I'll only be talking about Sandlot 2025, not Vicious Cycles IA. And it's up to me to gather my thoughts, feelings and experiences and tell you guys how I fared. Let's take a crack at it. EDF 2025 is set in the year 2025, 8 years after Earth Defense Force 2017. The game is set in a futuristic version of Earth, and the EDF themselves are supposedly a multinational military task force, but the only areas you seem to go to are in varying degrees of Japan. If I'm being honest, a lot of the cityscapes look similar to each other, and the only places to go that aren't cities are mountains and caves. But to be fair to the game, it does at least try to mix it up and do its best with that. I do like the fact that the buildings are destructible, which can offer a difference between using them for cover or blowing them up to attack enemies easier. Having said that, there are a few bugs, no pun intended, where the Ravager aliens would get stuck in buildings, which often made things both difficult and hilarious. Now for the aesthetics in terms of the graphics and the music and the like. Music first, I kind of felt like there was only one main actual score track in some cases. Maybe it was just my ears, but a lot of the music sounded quite similar. The graphics, however, are a big leap from IA, looking a lot better lit, and the characters and bugs look more realistic in terms of their appearances, which is pretty nice to see. Story of EDF 2025 is, it's set 8 years after EDF 2017, and you play as a nameless soldier who we'll call Eddie. Or if you're a Valkyrie, Edwina. As Eddie, it's your job through the 85 missions of the game to kill a wide variety of bugs and robots using a wide variety of weapons, and credit where it's due, as the game goes on, the missions do ramp up in scale and difficulty, as do a lot of the monsters. The game itself doesn't really have any cutscenes, and the only explanations that you're given for the most part come from either text that describes what you'll be doing, and characters from your headquarters communicating to each other as you progress through the game. It's subtle and quiet under all of the explosions and noise, but listening in on those conversations does reward players who actually pay attention. So basically the opposite of me. And speaking of talking, the dialogue in this game is fucking ridiculous and I love all of it. I really do. Game's tone has this B-movie charm and it knows how ridiculous its premise is, and it couldn't give less of a shit if it tried. I guess with a game like this where it's simple and doesn't really require a lot of thinking, I say just lean into the happiness of all of it and giveth nary a singular fuck, as the old English used to say. So, I didn't have a lot to say about the story itself besides what's told as you're playing the game, and I don't really have a lot to say about the characters either. None of them are given names, and the only things that are given names are the enemies that you fight. But I did not play through 85 missions of sheer bug murdering hell to let Eddie's story go on song, goddammit. And so, as always, in a case like this, I must improvise. You play as Eddie, or Edwina, a young soldier, Valkyrie, or wing diver if you want to be boring and wrong, fencer, or air raider. Once upon a time 8 years ago, a close family friend of yours was murdered during a picnic when one of the ants in the grass grew 30 times its own size and ate your friends. For revenge, personal pride, for queen and country, you take up arms to fight off the Ravager threat. In all honesty, while the characters don't really have names, they don't feel unimportant. They're actually really vital in conveying mission information and carrying on the story, and a lot of the soldier teams you fight alongside are handy in a battle as well. They're all interchangeable and they die a lot, but they do have impeccable singing voices, so I have to respect that. Finally, something worth talking about a bit more of. So, EDF is, to anyone who's touched the series before, a shooter. Your main method of fighting things is shooting them, and you have a large variety of weapons that you can use to shoot. There's a lot of different types of assault rifles, sniper rifles, grenade launchers, and so on, depending on how you like your bullets hitting your bugs. One thing I do like is how different the enemy types feel. Some are just redesigns of others, but even those redesigns have different abilities. That goes for both the bugs and the robots, and you may need to restart missions to pick a better weapon depending on the situation that you're going to be in. Also, if you do play this game, collect as much armor as possible as it increases your overall health in between missions. The game's difficulty actually plays a big part in the weapons that you get as well. If you play on the higher difficulties, like Inferno, the hardest one, you're more likely to get rarer and more powerful weapon drops, so you do get rewarded for taking those bigger risks. This can come in handy against boss fights, and also in cases where you may accidentally kill yourself by blowing up some falling debris. Speaking from a lot of experience, way too much. So, for a game that I didn't have a ton to talk about with the exception of the gameplay segments, man did I manage to drag this one out, which like the game could often be. Hey. The thing is, I can't dock the points for all the troubles that I had with the game because a lot of it was just me being an idiot. A small amount was the game being a cockwomble, but it was mostly me. I will take the blame. But for what the game gets right, it does a surprisingly good job at that. It's written and presented like a B-movie, it looks really nice and shiny for its time, and I'm glad that it knows how batshit ridiculous it all sounds. It's got some really good sound design, the weapons all have really good impact, and it's just a really fun and really silly time to be had by all. Game is well put together enough, it's got a decent difficulty curve to it, and it's got some super hammy and fun and really silly voice acting. My MVP in that case goes to either the main commander or the head scientist, but I'm leaning more towards the latter because he sounds like he's having a lot more fun with his role. Not to say that nobody is, because clearly everyone is, but still, add a single one out at least. So with all that said, I'm giving EDF 2025 a 7.5 out of 10. Now, EDF 2025 isn't exactly a complicated game or a smart one, but it knows that it's not either of those things. In fact, that's part of the reason why the series itself has such a strong cult following, and I can see why. It's an oddly charming, straightforward, and really fun shooter, complemented wonderfully by its sound and monster design, weapon choice, difficulty, and voice acting. But now the review's over, and I'm sad enough to sigh. Honestly, I've lost count of how many times I've died. I want to thank you all for watching. You're awesome, bye bye. The idiot deploys. See ya!